Alright, everybody, it's our Klaus here, and in all honesty, I am beyond excited to present today's information to all of you. And for those of you who have found your way here, I'm going to be operating under the impression that you are able to think critically and that you are wanting to understand more deeply what is going on right now and how all of these seemingly obscure pieces of culture are interwoven together into the tapestry of the end of the current age and the ushering in of the new age, which again seemingly appears to be right around the corner. So this really will be one of the more important videos I feel that I've put together, and it is going to be calling back to a number of things that we have been looking into and building upon over the last few months. So this really is going to be kicking the ball that much further over the moon today and continuing to raise the bar. So with all of that being said, let's establish what caught my attention in this whole just wild string here that we're going to be putting together. So back on May 22nd of this year, 2019, ABC aired this special called Live in Front of a Studio Audience, in which they did live recreations of classic sitcoms created by Norman Lear, a very big name in American television who we'll get into in a moment. And for whatever reason, it really resonated with me that this was worth looking into. And so for those of you not familiar, it turns out that this special had a very star-studded cast. As you can see there, everybody from Woody Harrelson and Will Ferrell to Wanda Sykes and Marisa Tomei making appearances here. But more than all of that, in this opening scene here, the radio is playing and they're talking about a press conference being called for Richard Nixon. And Woody Harrelson takes the lead in the All in the Family segment of this special. And so it was so peculiar to me because in the beginning of Natural Born Killers, there is a segment with Nixon discussing the Watergate scandal. And then we have the television flip to the number 77. And in thinking about this being a Norman Lear production, it also crossed my mind that in Natural Born Killers, there's a reference to King Lear. In that when Mallory Knox is being held in captivity, one of the excerpts that she has in her cell is from Shakespeare's play, King Lear. And so you can look into that further. And do remember that is the same place that she opens up the throat of Detective Jack Scagnetti, and then he is eventually shot on live TV by Mickey Knox, Woody Harrelson's character. And so this live special just really caught my attention with all of that. And so throughout this is going to be a baseline that we keep returning to, but I'm going to be integrating so many other pieces that fit into the story that they're wanting to tell us here. And one of the things I really feel is worth noting looking at the logo that they've created, you do have coming off of the 20th letter here, which would represent the Aeon or the Judgment card in the tarot deck, a set of antennae that create a nice V that encompasses the other V. And so that 44 that we get from that, and then we also see it creates the word lie. So lie in front of a studio audience. And of course, the whole word backwards is evil, and across the news, all of these things, that is the word chosen, having all of the meaning in it. But so let's take a look at a few things here as we start to establish our coding. And I do want to draw your attention to the right side of the screen. And again, that video that we just put out looking into UNESCO and South Africa, again being the location of the cradle of humankind, one of their protected sites, and a very fascinating set of information there. But the date July 16th is written out, and again, that is World Snake Day. But I want you to hold on to that, because that is going to be coming up. And again, just all of that information over there connecting UNESCO to the number 216, which of course is the reduction of the 666 times itself. But now back to the left side here. We have Norman Lear, a 10-letter name. Again, the Wheel Tarot card. Everything, right? Change is the only constant. I know for those of you who follow, I say that every video, but that is really this huge point. No one energy can stay in control for too long, and there's always that shift, and we're really going to build on that in a lot of ways today. But so the coding there for Norman Lear is the 666, and so very peculiar to me. He is 96 right now. 9 and 6, of course, 15, the Devil Tarot card. But what I really want you to get from this bit here is the fact that his name shares the same coding as High by the Beach. Now, for those of you who go back with me quite some way, you know that years ago, that song really caught my attention. That whole album really caught my attention. This is one of the promo shots here. And you can see in her telescope this V, as well as the one around her neck. And of course, that telescope giving her a third eye, and all of the symbolism that we can really pull from this powerful image. But I'm going to come back to that in just a moment, because the album that is off of is titled Honeymoon, and that is her 4th studio album. And so the number 4 really of the most paramount importance in considering all of these occult pieces. Again, thinking about the 4 moon phases, the 4 elements, 4 seasons, right? All of these controlling factors of our world, the 4 cardinal points. What I also want you to consider is that time is the 4th dimension, and we're really going to expand on that. Of course, the connections to Saturn and all of the things we could go into, but this coming off of her 4th album is incredibly important. Not only that, but the album was released on September 18th of 2015. Now remember, September 18th is when David Blaine and Donald Trump announced their Dive of Death stunt. But as you can see on the right side of your screen here, in 1947, that was also the date that we had the establishment of the National Security Council, as well as the CIA. It was also the first day of operations for the United States Department of Defense. So again, these huge pieces here. All of this, of course, tying back to our discussions with Truman, the 33rd president who did die at age 88. Very peculiar. All of those numbers, very important. But I will also hone you in on it, since we're over here, that Nixon is an anagram for N-Nox. And remember, N-O-X is the Knight of Pan. And again, this is a very, very big occult concept that we've covered. I recommend my pangolin video if you want to learn more about that. So the importance of all of this, and yes, it is the day that Jimi Hendrix died as well. But so from September 18th, 2015 to November 8th of this year, 2019, is going to be a span of 216 weeks. And so when we really start to pull that across, you see that Del Rey's birthday is June 21st. And of course, that can be written as 216. The simple value for that does connect us to chapter 77, book 77 from Crowley's concept, The Law of the Strong. And again, all of the other pieces that I could go into on the right side of your screen. But so something that interests me with Del Rey's connections to this 216 is, again, it being hailed as one of the numbers of the beast. And so to have that then attached to a female who does absolutely feed into that sort of character, which we'll go into here later, is very compelling to me. But so with those things, let's hone back in now on High by the Beach. Because the thing that really caught my attention all of those years ago was the music video. And at the end of it, you can see here this verse written on a piece of paper, which is inhaled by waves. But it contains the spoken word verse that she has at the end of the song here. And in it she says, anyone can start again, not through love, but through revenge. Through the fire we're born again. Peace by vengeance brings the end. Now, for one of the biggest names in the music industry to have that spoken word over one of her singles was very peculiar to me. Clearly, this idea of through the fire being born again, representing a phoenix rising from the flames. And then that phrase, peace by vengeance brings the end. Well, I'll be damned if the coding for that phrase isn't the same as President Donald J. Trump and New York City Marathon, that November 3rd date that I keep coming back to. I was blown away. Still am. And these ideas as well, all of the psychological operation, mind control techniques, Project Bluebeam references, this idea of the worst shark attack ever. Again, one of my subscribers tuning me into the Beast division of Russia's Navy, essentially, in that it is their nuclear submarine division. And I have looked into that for all of you. And it's very, very interesting for this notion of beast from the sea attacking, right? How they instill all of these seeds and then the abstraction by which they manifest them. So with all of that, though, let's hone back in here and notice that the coding for Honeymoon is the same as American Maniacs, the show on natural born killers, in which the prison riot takes place, in which Scagnetti is killed live on TV, all of that taking place on Super Bowl Sunday, all of the things. If you've not seen that video, you are really, really missing out. But so notice here just all of these major pieces we've gone into in the past, including these ideas of Judgment Day, the forehead shot, and the phrase, coming soon. Hold on to that one, as well as Butch Coolidge, the character Bruce Willis plays in Tarantino's '94 film Pulp Fiction. I'm going to get into that because it is so interesting that he wrote the screenplay for that and Natural Born Killers, which were both released the same year. But so in getting back to Del Rey, though, in this idea of Honeymoon, I think that it is really worth noting that in the opening song of the opening track is the same name. And to me, it is summoning Cali. You can see here she's saying, you want me to, say you want me to. And again, we can think of this as the Me Too movement or what that represents. But notice here, dark blue is repeated in phrases of 2, and she says it a total of 4 times. But so who I want to tune you into over here is Cali, who is referred to as the dark blue one in some regards. And her connections to the Queen of Swords tarot card, which we talk about very extensively, especially in all these ideas of decapitation, right? The separation of ego. Kathy Griffin's decapitated Donald Trump photo will be 888 days old on November 3rd this year. And you can see here that the symbolism directly tied with Kali. So when we really start to look into who this deity is, it is very astounding to me to see that this individual that she stands upon is Shiva. And Shiva is the one who has a statue outside of the CERN particle collider. And so Kali shows dominance there. Now, to me, that is just some incredibly fascinating stuff. Now, of course, Kali has 4 arms. Right? We're going to keep coming back to all of that. And what I want you to see here as well are these references to her name being a form of time. And again, hold on to that concept. Again, it's connections to Saturn, but we're going to keep building on it. By extension, time as changing aspect of nature that brings things to life or death. Right? So this very big concept, and again, you can see written out here how the reference can give the description of the dark blue one. This point that I'm really trying to bring across as being important. So again, you can go through here and read the symbolism that accompanies the typical illustrations of her. It is all quite fascinating to see her connected to these ideas of death and time. And the other thing that I feel is just absolutely worth noting is that apparently Kali is the reason the Rolling Stones have that logo. And again, this is one of the most iconic images in pop culture since it was brought about. People who don't even listen to the band are well aware of it. They'll probably even wear it or have it on their walls. So how very interesting that that connects to this, right, supremely important and powerful deity. So with all of that being said, when we look at the coding for dark blue, you'll see here it has that 444 or 74 coding. Now, how very interesting that when we mirror the number 74, it's obviously 47, but that is the same value for time as well as beast, Pez, right? The Pez theory, I'm telling you. And that's also going to be the age of HBO on November 8th of this year. Again, all the things that we've discussed with that. So these massive connections here, but notice with that coding on the left, dark blue, the same as Batongo, that penitentiary in Natural Born Killers, with everything that I've been talking about so far. Notice as well Jesus and Lucifer sharing that coding, as well as killing the king. You see the Roman numerals for 2020, as well as trauma. And then these connections to nuclear weapon. Now, I asked you earlier to hold on to the date July 16th from that Cradle of Humankind coding. And you'll notice here that the Manhattan Project dropped its first bomb, the Trinity test, on July 16th, 1945. Now, of course, July 16th can reduce down to the number 77, and as I discussed earlier, has gone on to become World Snake Day. But 2019 will mark 74 years since that Trinity test. Now, how incredibly fascinating is that this dark blue would have that same 74 coding. But wait, it gets better. So Lana Del Rey is currently in the middle of her fourth headlining tour. And it is called, as you can see, the LA to the Moon Tour. So of course you have the Saturn symbolism, all the cosmic things. Again, we could even start to bring in these ideas of the Queen of the Heavens or even the Universe card in connection to her. And again, this 10-letter name, just like Norman Lear, as we were talking about earlier, is our baseline. But so, what's really fascinating is that when we look into the coding for LA to the Moon, it is the same as the Manhattan Project and the Trinity test, as I was just discussing. And that's for the LA to the Moon tour written out completely. And if we do just LA to the Moon, Pez theory, unreal that we get that value, that simple of 138. Again, Donald Trump, keep America great, all the things. This is one of the most important numbers, bar none. And you can see as well here, Culver City comes up, and that is where this live in a studio audience show that I'm talking about was filmed. Unreal. So now, as I pointed out, when Del Rey summons Cali and says dark blue, she says it in sets of 2. So that can either be a 22, a total of 4, and then when we go in here and look at that written in a pair, we have the 888 coding. Now that of course is the same as Donald J. Trump and Elizabeth Grant, which is Lana Del Rey's actual name. Now you'll also see written out here Beast Division, as I discussed earlier, that Russian submarine division with the nuclear capabilities. Very interesting. Notice as well here Nebuchadnezzar, I know I pronounced it wrong, but the king of the universe, right? In the sense of the tale of being the king of Babylonia and the one who Holofernes is conquering in the name of when he is beheaded by Judith. Again, something we discussed in the previous video and I will come back to today. But with all of these major pieces floating around here, it is quite unreal. And again, the references here to Jumbo Jr., all of these ideas of Dumbo, if we're going back and even just thinking about the Cali bit, in the new Dumbo movie, this is his mom, Cali the Destroyer, with that big K on her head, the 11, the number of points on the cliff off, the chief magical number. And Dumbo, of course, wears the D on his head, the 4, so that 11-4 or the 44 coming from that. And if we looked into Cali the Destroyer, as presented in the film, you do see it as the same as the Lord of the Gate of Death. Again, this is the esoteric name for the death card, the transformation card. Connections as well to Juliet Hollister, founder of the Temple of Understanding, located at 777 United Nations Plaza. And again here, these references to Donald Trump, first-degree murder, all of these. Yeah, so I could go on with each of these, in that they are so very interesting. These connections to the comet Elenin coming up. And for Lana Del Rey's Honeymoon album, the cover of it is her standing in front of, or sitting on, a Starline Tours bus. This connects to the film Mars Attacks, that also has a Starline tour bus in it. And again, thinking about the new Dumbo movie and Mars Attacks, both directed by Tim Burton. So, what else? Well, notice here the coding for Bradley Nowell is shared amongst all of this. And in thinking about Bradley Nowell, for those of you not familiar, he's the front man for the 90s ska alternative group Sublime. He died. I'm not laughing at him. He's a fantastic musician, but the story is just a little unreal. So he died of an alleged heroin overdose in San Francisco in 1996 on May 25th. That was the 10-year anniversary of Hands Across America. Again, as we discussed, but I'm going to come back to that, so hold on. But why Bradley Nowell even comes up is because Lana Del Rey's most recent single is a cover of a Sublime song, Doin' Time. So, in thinking about, let's get Bradley covered here because this is important. In thinking about his birth date of February 22nd, it is important that 222, that is the same as the World Economic Forum, as natural born killers, as Donald John Trump Sr., all of these major pieces. And when we're thinking about this number 10 being connected to everything, and thinking about his death, I found this documentary. It sounds like a VH1 behind the music sort of thing. But so they're talking about his last day, and he had spent all night high by the beach. He was on the beach, loaded. And the next day he bursts into the hotel room of his bandmates, and so let's see if we can play this.
He barged in to wake up his bandmates and tell them about the 10-foot waves that were breaking offshore.
He's talking about these 10-foot waves breaking offshore. Dies on the 10-year anniversary of Hands Across America. And, I'm going to come back to all of that. But so, in looking at Lana Del Rey's cover of this, you see that on May 7th of this year, she teased the cover saying it was coming soon. Now remember, I told you to hold on to that from earlier, as that shared that honeymoon coding in all of these other major pieces. And so what's also so very interesting about May 7th is that's the same day that the NXIVM trial began against Keith Raniere. Now 10 days, and we're going to come back to him. Now 10 days later, she releases the track. And so there you have all of these 10s, all of these incredibly important references. And again, if I pull it up for you on the right side of your screen to give you a little more insight into this number, how it connects with what we're talking about today, this perfect number, more ideas connected to Nixon and the number 55 for you up there. But so let's shift back over now on this left side. And notice that Doin' Time, both the words are 4 letters, so we have a nice 44. And of course, this comes up all of the time, right? It is the same as the double V, as kill, magic with the K. Again, those references to CWR, the Crusade for World Revival. It's the last thing that we see in Pink Floyd's The Wall movies, CWR 414. Hold on to that. All right, so anyways, the initials for Doin' Time, DT, well, hey, it's Donald Trump. Now you'll see here that the simple value for it is Death 13 in the Roman numerals there again, 13th tarot card. And again, these references to Jumbo Jr., end times, phallus, right? The elephant coding, the very phallic nature of their noses, elephant being an anagram for the plane. The fact that they have the burning tower scene in the Dumbo movie. Yeah, we had that for you. And again, remember when we were talking about the original, there was a 9/11 completion date on it. And then again, in the new movie, this tower scene, the pentagram, all the things. Remember the 4 elephants of the apocalypse from the Simpsons reference, but this is from the Dumbo cartoon. Terrifying as that looks. But so, let's get back. What's really fascinating here is that if we think about Lana Del Rey and these occult connections, and again, all of this Dumbo stuff, back in 2017, on May 24th, or excuse me, February 24th, Lana Del Rey encouraged and joined in the collective hexing of Donald Trump. And so February 24th is the 55th day of the year. So on the right side of your screen there, you can see that that is the same as Dumbo, as well as New Age, Satan, all of these pieces we talk about. And of course, we can reduce that date to 88. But that span of time that she encourages you to join in the hexing goes over 4 moon phases and totals 89 days, just like the simple value for doing time. Now, isn't that some shit? If we take this a whole step further here and look at her release date of that single to the New York City Marathon, it's 171 days. Now, this is phenomenal because 171 is the same as Hands Across America, the Death Tarot card, Elizabeth W. Grant, her middle initial included, as well as the Pez theory. Now, in this video, it's going to pop up as coding for Henry's Farewell, which is the episode in this live in a studio audience that we're allegedly talking about today, starring Woody Harrelson in that role. So, oh my God, it's really something to see. So, let me get back though, because there's some really interesting stuff connected to this hex. So I went back and I was looking into this article from BuzzFeed, and it says the ritual involves burning an unflattering photo of Trump on a stumpy orange candle while chanting "You're fired." And so when we pull up the coding for "You're fired," here we are back at home box office. And again, all of these references to 45. Again, Donald Trump, that is his number. You can see here as well the gold watch. I told you to hold on to Butch Coolidge earlier. Bruce Willis from Pulp Fiction. And again, a lot of his story arc revolves around his father's gold watch. And we're going to come back to that as we continue to really unravel everything here. But so, with all of that being established, give me just one moment here, and we're going to come back and talk about this live in front of a studio audience some more. So hold on. All right. So, as we stated earlier, live in front of a studio audience was shot in Culver City, located in Los Angeles County, California, at Sony Pictures Entertainment headquarters, right? So, in thinking about this, obviously, Culver City, the 2 C's, 33, but when we look into Sony Pictures Entertainment, there's some really interesting stuff here that comes up as far as controversies they've been connected to. So notice last year on July 3rd, 7/3, and again, that is now Trump's age, they accidentally uploaded the film Cali the Killer onto YouTube in its entirety, and the film stayed up for several hours before being removed. Oh, well, I'll be damned. This reference to Cali, even with the K, this is still absolutely in line with what we're talking about. And so, of course, you'll notice that it gets a 3.3 rating, that nice 33 out of 10. And if we mirror that, we have 133. Now, that's one of the most important numbers, and I'm really going to hone in on that later in this video. But I want you to see here this report that comes out saying the video reportedly drew 11,000 views before being pulled down after 8 hours. November 8th. Very interesting to me, to say the least. But so let's go back. Nope. So we have that. But then Sony Pictures, of course, was at the heart in November 2014 of that giant computer hack carried out by the Guardians of Peace. So, of course, you had all of the controversy with that, with the movie The Interview and the threat to remember the 11th of September 2001. And on December 17th, 2014, Sony canceled their plans for releasing it on Christmas. Now, December 17th also was the date that nuclear fission was officially discovered, and we've talked a lot about that in the past. It's also the same day the movie Wag the Dog came out, also starring Woody Harrelson. But all of that so supremely interesting to me. Now, take a look here. The show aired on May 22nd. 166 days before the New York City Marathon this year. And I pull this up because 166 is the same as September 11 and One World Order, as well as that number 73, which we were literally just articulating. But also because it comes up with stones and bones, and this is directly connected to that Cradle of Humankind research that I showed you in the previous UNESCO video. Now, the plot thickens when we consider that the show aired 171 days before November 8th of this year. And again, that's the day Battle of Midway is going to be released and all of the things I've discussed with that. But so we have these 171s building here. You're seeing this consistent number come out. Now, what was also peculiar is that the show aired 44 days before the 4th of July. So you can see 44 days is 1 month and 13 days, that important number. But hold on to all of that. So let's talk about the 4th of July for a second and what's going on. So on June 19th, the same day that Keith Raniere is found guilty in the NXIVM trial, Donald Trump announces his plans for the 4th of July event at the National Mall for the tribute called Salute to America. Now, the fact that that guilty verdict and him announcing this, and I told you that those two guys had a lot in common as far as the narrative that they're building. And then remember in my NXIVM video when I pulled this piece aside and said it was really weird that Frank Parletto, the guy who quote unquote initially blew the whistle on NXIVM, this White Rabbit story, was playing the Star-Spangled Banner in this Vice interview, saying that Keith Raniere and NXIVM are an American story. And then Trump announces Salute to America the same day that Raniere is found guilty. And again, this bit here from HBO, who is going to be making a docu-series on NXIVM. Fucking unreal. So, you can read through this article and see some stuff that's going on here. And I think it's really interesting that they use this apocalyptic language in talking about the 2020 campaign. Because again, keeping that sort of dialect in the mainstream narrative absolutely gives it power. And so that's something that I do. Let's jump back here for a second, because this hex, and again, this is all, remember, You're Fired is the same coding as Home Box Office. In the lines that they wanted them to chant in connection with the Tower Tarot card, as you can see here, they say, bind him so that he shall not break our polity, usurp our liberty, or fill our minds with hate, confusion, fear, or despair. And bind too all those who enable his wickedness, and those whose mouths speak his poisonous lies. Well, that's that double edge I was talking about earlier. Because everybody is under that umbrella at this point. And in thinking about all of these connections to the Queen of the Heavens, to Kali, to the decapitation of the head, the severing of the ego, this all starts to stack in so incredibly profoundly. But so now, if we look at the coding for Salute to America, you can see it as the same as Make America Great Again, the seventh seal, and Death Row Out LA, and go watch that Tupac video. I always tell y'all. But now what's really interesting is July 4th to November 3rd is 123 days. Well, damn it. If the simple 123 ain't the same as Keith Raniere. Isn't that just unreal? And there's some 88 coding. Again, Vanguard, one of the names most heavily connected to him. Also, most certainly worth noting is that Keith Raniere actually was born on the same day that Natural Born Killers was released. Not the same year, obviously, but they do share that. So that really struck me recently when I was going through all of this. But so again, all of these references to the marathon and a death sentence, it really goes on and on. Bob Greenblatt, if you're wondering, is the current head of HBO. So of course, that span of time is 4 months exactly. And it can also be broken down as 17 months and 4 days. 17, of course, the Star Tarot card, incredibly important in all of this. And then 4, as we've been discussing. But when we put them together for 174, we do see the same coding as New World Order, Number of the Beast, False Prophet. You also have the phrase, you'll find out. Now remember, this is what Trump is always spouting when he's talking about just talking his shit, right? He says, you'll find out. And years ago, when I first did my Get Out video, I was telling you the word out itself was something to be examined. And then over time, we found that chapter 23 from Crowley's Book of Lies talks exclusively about the concept of get out and what it has to do with sacrifice. So all of these major pieces here. And you'll notice that 174 is the same as Outside the Wall. This is the last song in the Pink Floyd Wall movie. And remember, Donald Trump was 33 when the Wall album came out. I kid you not. Woody Harrelson was 33 when Natural Born Killers was released. This is, I mean, shit like that. But so, let's keep building on this star bit, though. So Keith Raniere was found guilty on June 19th. That was the 170th day. Now, it's really peculiar because in my Nexium video, the last thing that I was talking about was the company AstraZeneca. And you can see over here all of their connections to stars in the number 113. But the reason we were honing in on them is they own the purple pill, which is Nexium. And that is how you pronounce NXIVM in connection with Keith Raniere. So that 170 is the same as World War III, as well as women's rights, which is interesting in connection to Artemisia, who we talked about in the last video, who painted Judith beheading Olefranes. And it's interesting with Lana Del Rey at the heart of this video, she is actually quite vocally not a feminist. And so I love how that plays into things here. But so think about all of that, and then think about the fact as well that 113 coding, and I'm sorry, it was actually right back there with the 170, is the same as Apocalypse and Salvatore, which is another track. It's actually track 10 off of Lana Del Rey's Honeymoon album. Okay. And so when you look at the amount of time for Salvatore, it is 4:41. When we mirror it, it is 1:44. Again, that very apocalyptic number. And, you know, I've talked about all of this so much with my previous videos, but again, do note the opening track in that 55 connecting in as well. Now, in keeping in line here, and remembering that Dumbo is just as much a part of this as any other piece, the new Dumbo movie released on the 88th day this year, which was March 29th, and that was connected with all of the NEMA, the national emergency stuff that was going on that day, had a budget of $170 million. And so again, why I keep boldening the 17 is we drop that 0 and it is the star card. And when we're looking back at that 2017 Economist cover, that is of course the last card. And so all of these pieces, so very interesting, right, as we continue to just pile them on. So now, when we're looking at the NXIVM trial again, beginning on May 7th, the verdict was announced on June 19th as a span of 44 days, or 1 month and 13 days, all of these 113s, and how we can break that down to a 33, or look at it as November 3rd. Now, how wild when we look at the guilty verdict to the New York City Marathon, it's 138 days. And that brings us right back to our Pez theory coding. So, Raniere is going to be sentenced on September 25th, 99 days after the guilty verdict. And so, of course, all of that connecting in with all of these other pieces with Game of Thrones that we talked about in the NXIVM video. And you can just read it on and on. September 25th to November 3rd is 5 weeks and 5 days. It's another 55. Allison Mack, his cohort in all of that, and remember, their initials were the ones put onto the people, KRAM, mirrored as Mark. Her initials, 113. She's going to be sentenced on September 11th this year. So they're keeping all of that. You see? I hope you see. But so, let's get back here. Because allegedly we are still talking about the live in front of a studio audience. And this is something I find interesting. You know what? Actually, give me just one moment here. All right, so back to live. And I found this article that actually lists the premiere date is May 25th, which, remember, this year is the 33-year anniversary of Hands Across America. And so, we keep mentioning that. And so let's go through here. And remember, this is from the movie Us. And this is how the movie begins. And they're talking about that event. And they show an image of the Twin Towers. And then they show an image of the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, of course, a ton of speculation about that bridge being the location for the next massive 9/11 style attack. Though in all likelihood, it would only be one of many locations. But again, this Hands Across America symbolism then directly connected to the idea of 9/11. And remember, this whole major piece of a lot of things is me talking about the film Get Out and Rod Williams talking about the second 9/11 being on some geriatric shit. Now, whether we think about that as far as the coding that I've showed you or Trump being a fucking geriatric, it's very compelling that in his next film, Peele directly includes a homage to the 9/11 site. So, as I stated earlier, Henry's Farewell, the All in the Family episode from this special, has the coding of Hands Across America, as well as the Death Tarot card and all of these other major pieces. You'll notice as well there, Milton Hershey. Now remember, he also died at the age of 88. And if I could pull that up for you on the right side of your screen, it really is a fascinating set of information connected to him, as well as, again, everything that you can now see on the right side of your screen. But so, in thinking about this death by chocolate and all of these references to Trump and everything connected over from Michael leaving the office, I want you to see as well here, and this is a recap, Will Ferrell's character, again, he also appears in this live in front of a studio audience, is seen lusting for a Hershey's bar and says, "If I were shot in the head, I'm pretty sure everything would be fine. I almost welcome it." And then gives us that wink. And so I did really break that down for you in the video, talking about the stork again on the 33rd edition of The Economist cover from this year, The World In, carrying that 10-digit barcode in his mouth. But D'Angelo Vickers here does eventually have his forehead sealed, and that most certainly connects with all of everything that we've been discussing. But so, what you can also keep in mind here with this death by chocolate coding is all of these bits. And I'm just going to highlight them over here, and if you're interested, it's all available for you. But so, the Trump card, the significance that has in all of this is that's from that Sopranos episode I looked into, in which I'm asking if the Battle of Midway will be the second 9/11, because they talk of this Trump card, and it's really a fascinating video. But so, let's keep going here. The other featured episode in the special is called A Friend in Need, and it's the season premiere of The Jeffersons. Now, this is incredible because it has a 108 simple value, which is the same as Buried Alive, again thinking of Don Trump and David Blaine. Greatness, again, choosing greatness was the theme for Trump's State of the Union address. And again, all of these other pieces that are just so incredibly major. I know I've got these pictures around here somewhere. I just don't want to fumble through too much here. So again, this isn't an incredibly important piece, though, this idea of Don Trump coming back. But so, when we look at this and we see the coding for impregnate. And really one other thing that I do want to hone in on here, since we're talking about 108 and anybody still watching this about an hour in is most certainly interested in this. Kali's garland that she wears around her neck consists of about 108 human heads. And so, in thinking further about that 108 coding, look at these ads from Traffic Junkie. And again, if you're appalled by this, that's good, because this should not seem normal or appropriate to you. These ideas of wanting to simulate and control and impregnate these artificial, these virtual, these non-human things is completely unreal, where that is now the goal. It is not just the release. And so these are brought to you by Traffic Junkie, and remember, they are connected to MindGeek, which is one of the titans of many things. But what I want you to see here with Traffic Junkie, when we pull them aside here, they're saying, hey, your customers are on Pornhub, so why aren't you? And again, as I discussed, the popularity and the normalization that happens on this site, that happens through HBO, these things that were once taboo and they're perverted, right, in nature, but over time normalized, and it just overturns the whole foundation of a society. This is a huge portion of sex magic's overall purpose. But so, in thinking about Traffic Junkie, and again, they've got very, very capable individuals working for them. They can track your ass and record all sorts of things that we've talked about. But what's so interesting is they're going to be at this conference, Affiliate World Europe 2019. It's a biannual festival. This one's being held in Barcelona. So this really stuck out to me. High by the beach. But let's look at some things real quick here. Traffic Junkie has a symbol of 144. Well, there's your Walt Whitman, Mark of the Beast, 40, all of it. 216 written out. Siege of Bethulia. This is the siege in which, right, Judith ultimately beheads Alephrenes. And it's also the same as get out of Dodge in the phrase we were warned. Now, interestingly with that, this old episode of Married with Children is entitled Get Out of Dodge. And a scene that was removed involves two Arabs knocking on the Bundy's door holding an alarm clock bomb. They tell Al that they want the car and have no time to haggle, ask for directions to the Sears Tower, later renamed the Willis Tower. That big focal point of mine that I'm always coming back to, that's so big it has its own fucking zip code. But so, if we look at alarm clock bomb, just for shits and giggles, we do see it is the same as South Africa and the pangolin and Don Trump, blood sacrifice, new era, all of it. All of it. Mad cow disease, which the movie starring Woody Harrelson is the cause of the zombies overturning everything. All the things. Endlessly fascinating. We were warned is the catchphrase from the film 2012, also including Woody. But so you'll notice here, if you check out Affiliate, it does have that 414 coding. And again, false flag, one eye, out LA. And again, connecting to that Tupac video, where the word outlaw is obscured by his watch and it says out LA. And he's pointing to the one eye with two V's, that W, the 23rd letter. This is 23 years since this album came out and his death. All Eyes on Me obviously emphasized because they made a fucking movie with that title. All the things. Rings on his 4th and 5th fingers. 45th president. Remember as well, Stark having that coding. This is the one who sacrifices himself in Endgame, and the one who apparently claims the throne in Game of Thrones. So notice here, if we do affiliate world, we have World War III. We also have Cali the Killer, the one that Sony Pictures released on YouTube. Now notice as well here the phrase "off with his head." On the ground, last words spoken by Charles Dickens. And you'll also just see all of these just paramount concepts. But notice here, Pulp Fiction is one of the things that comes up. And so as I said earlier, it's so interesting to me that Tarantino wrote the screenplays for Pulp Fiction and Natural Born Killers. And both of them have these references to Knox. And again, Tarantino is from Knoxville, and you can see on the right side of your screen the coding that comes up there, including the connections to myself. But so that gold watch that we talked about earlier, connected to Butch Coolidge, right, is from a general store in Knoxville, which is where Butch plans to go after he is exiled from LA, when he's out LA. Remember as well that the Nexium Den was located in Knox Woods, which is located in Half Moon, New York. So, really, I could go on and on about these two. With Pulp Fiction, just thinking about the initials of it, it is that 166, just like the span of time from live in front of a studio audience to the New York City Marathon, coding for September 11, One World Order, all that kind of stuff. And again, as we got to in the beginning of this video, Quentin Tarantino sharing all of that coding with Del Rey's current tour, as well as the Manhattan Project. So something worth taking into consideration here is that Pulp Fiction was released on October 14th in 1994. That was 1 month and 19 days before Natural Born Killers, again mirrored as 9/11. Now, that was 15 years to the day before Hillary Clinton unveiled the Walt Whitman statue in Moscow, which has been a huge thing that I've discussed for you. Now, when we're thinking about pulling this over, and I just got these 119s here, this Affiliate World event starts on July 8th, and it's gonna, if we look at that to November 3rd, it's 1 month and 19 days. So we keep seeing that come up. Now, notice as well with Affiliate World Europe fully written out, it is that 20 letters, that is our Aeon card, and then you see Willis Tower Attack. The umpteenth reference to the Age of Aquarius, the phrase "our founding fathers," those letters OFF all reduced to 6. So that's a 666. That's 18 letters for the moon card. All the things. United Nations Plaza, location of the Temple of Understanding, and again, all of those connections to chapter 33 from Crowley's Book of Lies. Now, when we look at Barcelona, Spain, the location for this, here we have the dog has fleas in the Saturnian age. Remember from the Centennial, they released that bit talking about the ratification of the U.S. Constitution and a return to the Saturnian age. And you'll notice as well written out Black Skeleton and 7/7. Of course, the Black Skeleton in connection to the Death Tarot card. And all of these other bits, Saturnalian, FEMA 9/11, we're seeing all of this stuff with the border right now, and that is most certainly them gauging the public's response in this modern day and age to detainment centers. Just like when they had the controlled government shutdown at the beginning of this year, they were gauging the response of others to the plight of those in desperate need. And again, it's this idea of not saying anything until it's too late. But so, in thinking about all of this and connecting it to this huge event that's going to be going on, this really is quite the event. It is the leaders in the industry. It says you're cutting the top 10% of people and putting them all in one room, top 10 in the industry. And then so you'll notice if you go through here and you see their partners, we've got some big names at the table. And so the one that jumps right out is Facebook. And shout out to, I'm so sorry, I don't have it pulled up, but my subscriber who had brought up looking into the Facebook Libra currency. And so, I do think there is a lot to let's play this clip because this is hilarious to me.
So this is a massive effort, and the goal here is that it will be just like the US dollar, but used globally. A so-called Libra, the currency is going to...
Just like the US dollar, but used globally. And when we go into this Bloomberg interview here, they have the head of the division who is making this, and it said that there was a need to decentralize governance. And so listen to this, and I don't want to play too much of it because I really don't want this video getting tagged. But after he says all of that, she is stunned.
So Selena, so as you tell me a bit more about how...
Because that was actually something that they ran across there. There's so many players in this Bitcoin game that are so deeply interwoven in other companies and facets of the industry. It's really hard to say which one's going to come out on top and be this global currency. But again, all of these ideas coming right back here, right? To this idea of the phoenix rising, this one world currency, this one world religion, all of it. So the dates for this event are July 8th through 9th, 7, 8, 9. And that made me think of the old joke, why is 6 scared of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. And when we look at the coding on that, it is a symbol of 133, which is the same as All Eyes on Me. Ride, Donnie, Ride, the number 113 written out. It's also the same as 45th, Frank Parletto, Peace by Vengeance. That connection to Del Rey's High by the Beach. All of it. It's all in here. It's fascinating. And so even if we wrote out 7, 8, 9, because why not, if you're still with me, you see it gives us that 156 coding. Same as all of these things that we're always talking about. 33, 666, Fate's Messenger, the Beast Rising, the Battle of Midway. And you'll see as well here the references to First Sunday in 3 of Diamonds. So, shout out to Martin Webb for pointing out the Mitsubishi logo having 3 diamonds. Because in my previous video, when we were discussing this portion of the cover, I noted the 3 diamonds across the Vitruvian Man's abdomen. And we talked about Donald Trump actually having a birthday directly connected to the 3 of Diamonds. And so, of course, all of that coding now on the right side of your screen. Very fascinating stuff. But in thinking about the involvement of Mitsubishi, was very compelling. And so I found that there are 4 main companies of this group. And the one that most caught my attention was the MUFG Bank. And that reason is because of their giant stake in Morgan Stanley. And you can see on September 29th, 2008, they announced they would acquire a giant portion of them. And then they would solidify the deal on October 14th. And again, remember, October 14th is the same day that the Walt Whitman statue was revealed. It was the same day that Pulp Fiction came out. And so, undoubtedly, that will play a major role. But so Mitsubishi Group does have that same coding as Artemisia Gentileschi. And again, she is the one who drew her most famous painting, the beheading of Holofernes, right here. And that's our main theme in so many ways today. So coming back, you can see the references to the seventh trumpet and national security. Mitsubishi Motors has the same coding as Coolidge Family Gold Watch. Now that's Butch's full-on watch quest. And you see here Leonardo da Vinci's replica, which is from the poem The Pangolin, which was written by Marianne Moore. And she did have that 141 coding that we saw up here with World War III, Pulp Fiction, Affiliate World, Off with His Head, all the things. And so, of course, all of the connections to the Wall film that we've talked about and that 33rd edition cover. But remember the other thing that I was talking about in that previous video was the Vitruvian Man's Hands Across the World. And that has the same coding as New York City November Marathon, or NYC November Marathon, and the greatest hoax ever, I'm a Natural Born Killer, written out numbers 156, just like over here, and 141, just like Marianne Moore that we were literally just looking at. So that to me is so incredibly powerful and compelling. It's unreal. But so the last segment of this video, in just transitioning back and finishing out talking about this live special on ABC, is the Jeffersons. And you'll see written out there is November 3. And so something that we should absolutely put on the table is that the 2020 elections are going to be on November 3rd of 2020. So even if that marathon comes and goes without a hitch this year, what are the odds that next year we have just as much energy being put into that number, which I've been looking at for years and am waiting for something to come about on. But so notice all of these other pieces here, right? D'Angelo Vickers, the one from The Office, who was saying he would welcome being shot in the head. All of the mirror coding with him and Michael Scott that I've gone into for you. It's the same as marching hammers, again from Pink Floyd's The Wall, the Nazi symbolism that very clearly comes up in here and that is very clearly associated with Donald Trump. All of it. So the fact that we also have sopranos and pink elephants. So let's talk about Dumbo a bit more. Let's talk about the remake just a little bit. The big difference in this movie, aside from, well, all of it, is the presence of Dreamland. So Dreamland is essentially the Disneyland, Disney World of this film. It is eventually brought to complete destruction and flame. And it is owned by V.A. Vanderveer of Vanderveer Enterprises. VAV, VOW. So when we look into that coding, it is the same as Judith beheading Holofernes and Donald Trump prophecy. And I ask you, in all honesty, what you think the odds are. That there is just so much with all of these things that we look through. And then again, always laughing at you with that 33. It's all in the egg. But so in any case here, Vanderveer Enterprises also gives us these connections to going topless in late October, as well as the date October 23rd, which of course, if we add, is 33. Notice as well the references to past, present, future, directly connected to 3 diamonds symbolism. And again, I am so curious about this 4th of July weekend. The Salute to America stuff, all of that. Everything is connected comes up here as well. So in finishing things out here, that VAV is very important because it is directly connected to the Queen of Swords. Again, you can come through and look at all of this wonderful information that Eli Tarot puts up. But so Colette is the woman who rides Dumbo, and her stage name is literally Queen of the Heavens. And so you can see there that coding, same as Milton S. Hershey, World Pangolin Day, 111, which remember is the coding for Norman Lear and High by the Beach. That's where we started today. It's the same as the United States and the Four Horsemen, also present on the 2019 World End cover. It's the same as Star Spangled Banner, what Frank Parlato is playing when he's discussing Nexium on HBO. And it's the same as 133 written out. And remember in that video, my We the Nipple video, which has 133 coding, right when let's see if we can play this here. Has that simple value of 133.
What?
So those inexplicable warning signs, the first one appears right after I say 133. And there's a number of them that appear in there, I believe 5. And, I'd really, if anybody understands Morse code and can offer some insight on that, I would be fascinated by it. And there is also ringing during Pez theory being mentioned, the movie Us, all of it. So in finishing things out here, something I do want to pull up is off track 8 on Del Rey's Honeymoon album. She does read an excerpt from 4 quartets. It's called Burnt Norton. And of course, you can see that track is 1 minute and 21 seconds. And so remember, when we had pulled up that 121 just not too long ago here with Alarm Clock Bomb, Don Trump, all of it. So there's your 121. But so 4 quartets has the same coding as National Emergency, U.S. banking collapse, the vicious cycle, gunshot wound, Queen of Swords. What else do you want? Tear down the wall, Mickey and Mallory. It's unreal. You'll notice as well Our Honeymoon, which he's constantly saying in the first track, references to the number 144, the United World, All Hallows Eve. Forces of darkness, pull the trigger, the CERN-Hadron Collider. Remember, like I said, Kali tramples Shiva. And remember, 144 is the coding for Traffic Junkie. Let's pull it back. There you go. And all of this. So I've got some extra information here. Trump made his 29th appearance on Time magazine recently. And as we've discussed, 29 is a very important number. Let's see if I can get the coding for you. Of course, not only the same as Pasadena, California, Skull and Bones, all of the above, Saturn Cult. the King's Speech. Again, thinking about King Lear, Norman Lear, all of this. Liberty Valance. Oh my God, it's endless. It's so endless. And so this is some information talking about Del Rey's tour, how it connects further with the New York City Marathon, as well as the Battle of Midway. Notice again those 11 threes and 108. Again, if we're looking through here for VAV, you can see coding for Sears Tower, unprecedented event. A number of other fascinating things, connecting the Dumbo release to the guilty verdict from Nexium, the span of days, how that connects with 2019, the Stork, all of it. So this last bit here, and I'll just let you look through, because if you're still watching at this point, you know exactly what's going on here, right? You see all of this, and you understand its importance. Okay? So I will be very curious moving forward here to see what goes on. And with the dense scope on everything, I really feel I did a pretty decent job of including the things that I largely wanted to. There's really never enough time, and there's so much, it's so easy to just kind of get stuck in loops here and again. But for those of you who stuck it out, tremendously appreciated. And I genuinely hope that this gave you a deeper insight into just all of these things that we should be so critical and mindful of right now. So as always, thank you so very much, and please, please be well.